The emergency klaxons had barely finished their death rattle when Miles Carter realized he'd been left behind. The salvage crew's shuttle was already a disappearing speck against the void, abandoning him aboard the derelict Zaranthian warship they'd been gutting for parts. Miles stood in the cavernous engine bay, his magnetic boots keeping him anchored to the deck, watching his former colleagues flee through the cracked viewport. They hadn't even bothered to lie about it over comms. "Sorry, Carter," Captain Reeves had said, his voice crackling with static and insincerity. "Can't risk the whole crew for one mechanic." "Those things are waking up, those things." Miles turned slowly, his helmet lamp cutting through the darkness. Deep within the ship's bowel, something massive stirred. The deck plates vibrated with a rhythm that felt almost like breathing. The Zaranthians, the galaxy called them dragons, though they bore little resemblance to Earth's mythological creatures. 15 feet of scaled fury, 6-limbed with bioluminescent crests that could flash hypnotic patterns. Apex predators that had conquered 40 star systems before mysteriously vanishing 3 centuries ago. And Miles had just woken up an entire nest of them. The first one appeared from a maintenance shaft, unfolding its serpentine body with liquid grace despite the zero gravity. Its scales shimmered with an iridescent purple-black sheen, and its crest flared crimson as dozens of eyes, arranged in clusters across its elongated skull, focused on Miles. The creature opened its maw, revealing rows of crystalline teeth that could tear through hull plating. Miles did the only thing his panic-frozen brain could manage. He held up his wrench. "Easy there," he said, his voice embarrassingly high-pitched inside his helmet. "I'm just the mechanic. Barely any meat on me. Mostly gristle and bad decisions." The dragon tilted its head, a gesture so unexpectedly curious that Miles almost laughed. Then 3 more emerged from the shadows, circling him with predatory synchronization. The largest one, easily 18 feet long, positioned itself directly in front of Miles, its crest pulsed with a complex pattern of blues and golds. This had to be their leader. Miles's suit computer chirped a warning. Oxygen at 60%. He had maybe 4 hours before he suffocated, assuming the dragons didn't eat him first. The lead dragon moved closer, its multiple eyes examining him with unsettling intelligence. Then it did something that made Miles question his sanity. It spoke, not in words but in vibrations that resonated through his suit, bypassing his ears entirely and speaking directly to his bones. Images flooded his mind. Hunger, yes, but also confusion, pain. The ship was dying, its life support failing, and these creatures had been in hibernation, waiting for a salvation that never came. "You're trapped here too?" Miles whispered. The dragon, Varith, Miles somehow knew its name now, thrummed in affirmation. The others pressed closer, not threatening but desperate. They were starving, their hibernation pods damaged by centuries of neglect. The ship's bioreactors that once sustained them had gone critical, and they'd awoken to a tomb. Miles made a decision that would have gotten him committed back on Earth. "All right," he said, lowering his wrench. "Let's make a deal. You don't eat me and I'll fix your ship." Varith's crest flashed through a rapid sequence of colors. The other dragons chittered among themselves, their communication a symphony of clicks and subsonic rumbles. Then Varith extended one of its 4 manipulator limbs, delicate, appendages tipped with dexterous claws, and gently tapped Miles's chest plate. Agreement. What followed was the strangest 4 hours of Miles Carter's life, with Varith guiding him through the ship's Byzantine systems, using those bone-deep vibrations to translate the alien interfaces. Miles worked miracles with spare parts and human ingenuity. The dragons were surprisingly helpful, their smaller limbs accessing crawl spaces Miles couldn't reach, their bioluminescence providing light in the darkest corridors. He rerouted power from the weapon systems to life support, jury-rigged the bioreactors using components from his salvage kit, even managed to coax the emergency beacon back online, though it would take weeks for any signal to reach civilized space. The dragons watched him work with fascination, especially when he had to improvise a fusion coupling using nothing but a plasma torch and what he privately called optimistic welding. Varith stayed close, occasionally offering what Miles interpreted as suggestions, images of similar repairs they'd witnessed in their long history. "You know," Miles said, sealing the final conduit for terrifying apex predators, "you're pretty decent company. Vareth's crest flashed with colors Miles was learning to interpret. Amusement? Perhaps mixed with something warmer. Gratitude. When the bioreactors hummed back to life, bathing the ship in soft emerald light, the dragon's relief was palpable. Vareth guided Miles to a hibernation pod, this one intact and human-compatible with some adjustments. The dragon leader's message was clear. Rest, preserve oxygen, wait for rescue together. Together, huh? Miles settled into the pod, his exhaustion finally catching up with him. Through the transparent cover, he watched as Vareth coiled nearby, a guardian rather than a threat. The other dragons dispersed to their own pods, but none seemed hostile anymore. As the pod's sedatives kicked in, Miles had one final, delirious thought. He'd been abandoned by humans and saved by monsters, only to discover the monsters were better company. 3 weeks later, when a coalition rescue ship finally arrived, they found something unprecedented. Miles Carter, half-starved but alive, standing in the command deck of a functional Xeranthian warship. Beside him, Vareth and their pride of dragons, no longer threats but allies. The galaxy would eventually learn what Miles already knew. Humans had a gift for making friends in the strangest places. And sometimes the most fearsome predators just needed someone willing to see past their teeth to the desperate survivors beneath. Miles kept his wrench as a souvenir. Vareth kept the human mechanic as a friend. Some bonds, it turned out, transcended species, forged not in conquest, but in a shared refusal to die alone in the dark.